What's going on, everybody? Yeah, just want to get on here and bring everybody back to now. Appreciate y'all being here and vibing with me for a bit. Yeah, today I'm going to talk a little bit more about allowing and really focusing on the present moment and feeling as good as possible right now. And that has to do too with not getting stuck in these cycles of like struggling and strife and blaming others for why we can't feel good right now, but really just looking at everything that we're kind of desiring and boiling it back and bringing it back to the most simplest desire, which is just a desire to be happy or to feel good. When you look out at everything that you've done or doing or what others are doing, really everybody's like pursuing an activity or whatever they're doing with the end goal. A lot of times is just to feel good, to be happy. It's like why are you struggling and striving for years and years and years? It's like, oh well, I have I'd imagine a payoff day where then all of a sudden the floodgates will open and I feel good. And I'm not saying like when you acquire things little by little that doesn't start to add up. Obviously, but it has to do more with a mindset than it does with like what your body's doing. It has a lot more to do with what you're telling yourself, the stories that are going on within you, the assumptions that you're operating from. And if they serve you, if they feel good already, then by all means, you're doing it right. But like this is more geared towards kind of when you start to drift into unconscious patterns of suffering that haven't been figured out. And one of the easiest ways that I found, I'm still exploring this, by the way, it's like I haven't got it all figured out either, but as kind of learn through teaching others, you start to learn yourself how to feel good. And that's ultimately kind of the benchmark for where I'm moving forward in the now is just feeling as good as possible, and not being in the mind with fears of the old man and shit that's not even true, and really creating my new life and encouraging others to do the same. Because once you start to just see how this works, it's awesome, and you just want to share it with others, because ultimately you can be, do, or have anything. Nothing's impossible to you, and everything's new. And there's no reason to sit in these like hopeless cycles of just like, basically just waiting to die. Watching the death clock. This has more to do about like emerging from that, and with that, really focusing on allowing, which might be a trigger for some people, because it's a trigger for me, or at least it was, because the ego mind, the ego self that I created, wanted to just wrestle things to the ground, and I'm just going to just outwork everybody, and I'm going to just physical effort, and I don't care if I had to grind for 3 years. I'll just keep doing it, and I'll just eventually hit the promised land. That kind of mentality. And there's just a better way, and by better I mean just like an easier way, and it has to do with just enjoying where you're at right now, and that has to really get more and more present, more and more into a stewarding mindset, and realizing that everything is representing in your life right now your current state of consciousness that is available to you without resistance. And what resistance, is how I'm defining it, at least. It's just these unconscious patterns of fears that kind of hold you down. It's like that those stories that limit your vision. It's like, oh, well, you can maybe be a good example. You could be a successful entrepreneur, and you could have a successful business, and you could live in abundance and prosperity, and be able to serve humanity, serve your community, and provide a valuable skill or service to others. And anybody can do that, but then you have like the resistance of that being, oh well, I'm not worthy of that. I'm not smart enough to do something like that. That's for people that have XYZ, whatever story. You start catching these patterns that you tell yourself of why others can do it, but you can't. That idea of separateness, like you're separate from what you're seeing. Oh, that person over there can have whatever, but that's off limits to you because you're not good enough, or they got the big breaks that you didn't get, or whatever. Oh, you gotta be part of the Illuminati to do that. you gotta sacrifice and grind to do that, and all of these stories that we tell ourselves, and then that start to present themselves as true in your own reality. It's like your confirmation bias kicks in, and it's like, every time I see maybe an entrepreneur, I think that they're a Freemason, and then in my reality, I get that confirmation bias because I see like maybe a ring on somebody's finger, and it's like, oh, see, that's why, that's not for me, this old victim mentality, everybody's out to get me, and, I'm just a little victim. Shake that shit off, and through allowing and and allowing, realize that you're a vibrational being is maybe one way to visualize it. But even that, just your nature, you can think of it more simple. Is like your nature, your consciousness, you naturally float, like a cork in water. It's like you're naturally a high vibe. Feeling good is your natural state of consciousness that's always expanding upwards. Think of like a balloon that just floats, a cork that just floats up, 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 up. That's what you do naturally if you don't hold on to patterns of resistance, and realize that God's already done the work. You don't got to figure it out. You don't got to, through your own effort and energy and everything, try to please God through your works of righteousness. It's like you need to just sit back and realize God's already pleased with you. You're already good. You're good in God's eyes. God loves you right now and is trying to heal you from these patterns of resistance and these fears that aren't real, that are holding you in a low vibration, holding you in a low state of consciousness. And as you're in those states of consciousness, you're not feeling good. You're feeling sad. You're suffering. You're feeling anger. A lot of basically just forms of fear. And instead of getting into, if I just had the dream job, then I could feel good. If I just had the dream relationship, then I can feel good. First, start by realizing that the external carrots that you're thinking that will make you feel good in the future, start focusing on what feels good right now. Because so much of what's happening quantumly in the present is our past isn't drifting away to oblivion. It's cycling back and confronting us in the present moment. And that's when real change is in the present moment. You always have a choice in the now of what voice you're going to listen to. Are you going to listen to the voice of the past, from the old man that's basically just living in fear and trying to keep itself safe from danger, and everybody's out to get me, to the new man, which is connected with God, and ultimately the opposite. In so many ways, it's like who you are when you're not reacting out of fear and unconscious. You're able to really use your mind, and with that, it's a totally different state of being. It's a totally different way of interpreting your surroundings, your people going on, everything going on in the present moment. It's a lot more maybe deliberate, conscious, of like, instead of just letting your mind run wild with just thought after thought, and a lot of which don't feel good. And, instead of sitting there judging those, just realize that the more that you're able to be still, connect with your breathing, and just be open to God's love, God's energy in the present moment, the more you feel it. It's like because you're floating up. You have these thoughts that come in almost as little weights that you can feel in these resistance patterns, but through allowing, you're not sitting there trying to change a thought. Try to get to the bottom of why I think this, and let me turn this rock over and see why. Let's relive this wrong. Let's relive this victim activity. It's like, let's remember when somebody and I got in a fight. And let's just live in that. Let's experience that again because it was so fun the first time. It's getting, recognizing that, as being brought to your consciousness, and without you having to do anything, start looking at it more of like, that just popped up. I'm ascending up the vertical dimension of consciousness, realizing more and more in elevated states of love, joy, peace, all the fruits of the spirit. And this has popped up. Instead of sitting there battling with it, just realize, oh, that's a little scrap of fear. That the remedy is always to extend love to it. It's like, the error and the solution are in the same thought. And the quicker that you go, oh, that just got brought to my conscious awareness, it just got brought to the light. Let's ask God for a new thought about it. It's a different way to look at that. That's more empowering. That's more accurate to the realization that there's only God. There's only oneness. And so, how did this happen? And why did it happen? And what's the benefit? Because all things ultimately are serving this awakening process. And the faster that you're able to go, oh, that helped me to become more consciously aware of the fact that, a lot of times that my own thoughts and beliefs and assumptions from the ego have created this fear. And then as a result, created this experience that I'm reacting to that I don't like. And so by catching that pattern faster and faster, it's like, it doesn't really become about the external carrot, but the state. Did it feel good or did it not feel good? Okay, well, who cares what events play out, as long as every event plays out and makes you feel good. God's already got the means and has already created the situations. So if your goal is inner peace, feeling good, joy, love, start in your consciousness, allowing that healing to just come to you. It's like if your body, this is something I'm, deal with, is like chronic pain, which, is more and more so each day, becoming more and more, healed, I'd say, as I'm starting to do the bike rides again and really starting to work out the body and catching the limiting beliefs and assumptions and the resistance that is there, that ultimately, as you're working through, as you stand in faith, because now is when faith is. It's always happening now. The path of least resistance to what you desire, which is feeling good, is always right now. It's getting out of that mindset of like, okay, well, I hear what he's saying, and I'm going to look around at my life and maybe start judging it harshly, stop doing that, and go, okay, well, I hear this information. Maybe it resonates. Maybe it's starting to make your inner being feel good. Well, let's start expanding that goodness, because that tiny taste is just a starting spot. You felt the lowest lows in the suffering cycle, in the old man. Well, all of that suffering and enduring that you dealt with now has a opposite component, in feeling good with positive situations, positive circumstances that will begin to be your experience as you're, ultimately not allowing the outer physical shadow world to dictate how you feel. It's getting more and more into a conscious, desire to just be feeling good. And as you feel good, then you start getting corresponding thoughts that are more in line with what you resonate with, what makes you feel good. So it's like not to sit there and judge the ego for making you feel bad. Looking at everything that's going on within you as being part of a perfect process. That the error is coming from a lack of understanding how it's supposed to function correctly. Because it is already functioning correctly. It's like you get into a vehicle and you hit it in neutral and you wonder why it's not driving fast. It's like, well, you just don't understand how it works yet. And part of that understanding comes from within by asking for it and realizing that that's even a possibility. But like with like pain in the body, and this is how kind of got into this kind of stream of thought. It's like you start feeling pain in the body, and this is coming from my personal experience. It's like start feeling it, but instead of like the ego mind would then start to want to spiral out in fear of like worst case scenarios of like, oh, is this going to cripple me? Is this going to continuously get worse? Is this going to last forever? Is this going to just then you start spiraling out in the what ifs and worst case scenarios. And then what I've been doing recently, which has been very effective as far as just and this kind of maybe if you want some more information on the letting go technique, read David Hawkins' book. What is it? The Art of Letting Go. And in that book, kind of gives you more of a more details about, kind of allowing the feeling to come up, and, allowing the thought to come up, and just let it just fade out. But this is kind of an adaptation a little bit, because, what I've been enjoying kind of doing in like the body process of pain, letting go of it, is instead of, feeling the sensation, but instead of sitting there judging it, which is what the ego mind likes to do the majority of the time, sorting things into, oh, this is good, this is bad, let's sort things into these two categories. And so instead of looking at it as, is there any way that this could be, how is this in oneness, with God being all that is, in God's love, so how is this love? I don't get it. And so like looking at it, as the initial sensation, maybe it's maybe it gets your attention. It's just like, oh, that's intense. I got an intense thing going on in my body right now. But instead of reacting out of fear, and making that fear real, that's a big part of the thing too, is like when you start reacting and start to be triggered by it, then all of a sudden you take in almost like a neutral, and now you've made it into a monster to battle yourself. When you just don't need to even make it real. Part of it is reinterpreting what's going on. So in part of the reinterpreting, it's like, oh, I feel a sensation. Oh, that's spirit healing that part of my body. So instead of like looking at it as like, oh, it's an illness that's getting worse, look at it more as like, oh, I just need to step out of the way and allow the healing that's in there, and not to kind of grab it and just hold on to it and prevent it, and resist it, just to allow it. And you'd be thankful, instead of like going, oh, like for the old man would be, oh shit, I'm in pain again, and now poor me, and then then I'll maybe on some level trying to have an identity based around it. It's like, oh, I'm tough because I can endure this, and other, if other people had this, they'd be, you tell yourself these stories to justify it and make it even more real, instead of just looking at it as an illusion that doesn't need a battle. God's already got the battle won. Jesus won, and Jesus is inside of you, and where Jesus is, there is no pain. Jesus is healing. So God already sees you as healed. So anything going on with the body, looking at that more as like, okay, well, I created this pain somehow. You're taking ownership of it, taking responsibility for it. And that might be hard to hear, but it really is a good step in taking getting yourself out of this victim mode, because as you start to do that and reinterpret it, it's like, okay, well, I feel a sensation, I got some hip pain going on, it's like, okay, well, I got an illusion going on, there's a sensation, I'm not going to make it real by freaking out about it, but I'm just going to allow God to heal it, or not prevent or block the natural state of healing that's already present, and just to allow, and to just let it be there, not wrestle with it, not battle with it, not make it even more real by building it up into this thing, and just realize that all things are temporary, that this will pass. All things pass. Every day is different. Every moment is different on some level, and not trying to hold on to recreate the same moment. That's almost the root of addiction, is like, whoa, this moment was so great, I just want to keep living it over and over, and you try to create it yourself, and then it starts losing steam, and then you're not happy anymore, and you don't understand why, because you just did the same thing. Part of that, is not appreciating the uniqueness of every moment, and being okay with it never being exactly the same, but like with the pain issue, and allowing, you just start imagining that the cells are opening up, or however it works for you. You can go within to figure out this process. It could be totally different for you, but for me, it's like just realize that, spirit's touching that area, so I'm going to allow it. I'm going to be thankful that healing is coming to that area. I'm just going to step out of the way. I'm just going to allow and just be. I'm going to focus on maybe just breathing if it's super intense, for that energy to release. But then as you remove your attention from it, it's almost like it you start to level up, and then you're back to a space where you're not really conscious of what your body's doing, and and even when it's just your body and or not your body, but just your conscious awareness. If you're feeling thoughts that are putting you in a state of fear or an energy that you don't like, start focusing on what you do appreciate. What can I get more of right now? Because if I'm reaping the fruit of my consciousness, of these assumptions and beliefs and everything from the past and the present, and this is as good as I've done so far, it doesn't mean that's you're just going to be at this level forever. But take ownership of it. Where you live, your relationships, your money situation, any of these things that you can play around with in your day to day. It's like how can you steward down, or I just really not have this, oh, if I only had, then I could be happy mentality. But focus more on feeling good now and allowing however that looks, whatever that looks like, to start to unfold in the moment. It doesn't really matter. We don't really know what that looks like, I don't think. Maybe we do, on some level, but we're so used to the old man, and the thing with the old man, that's basically just reacting out of fear and feeling, and you feel that energy, you feel that draining, constricting energy. It's like you may not have consciously been aware of how the exact manifestations of that fear cycle played out, but it's almost like you're afraid of that feeling, so and however it manifests, it's the same, good or bad, fear or love, it's the same kind of flow, but like when you're focused on feeling good and allowing God to come in and kind of correct the errors, plant new seeds of thought, and point you in the new man direction with the vision of heaven on earth. You're experiencing heaven. That's your future. Never feeling the fear. The horse shit from the ego again. It's like you leave that old man behind, and now we're exploring the new. Exploring thoughts and consciousness that maybe have never been experienced up till now, because we're going up, we're not going horizontally, but with that then too, there's always like somebody there to meet you at that level, that's going to help guide you up even more, and part of it again, is just allowing, just allowing yourself to be still right now. Maybe you got so many thoughts going on, and it's just like, maybe you're mad at society, mad at the government, mad at your boss, your wife, your husband, your kids, whatever, is causing you grief and pain and irritation and all this kind of shit. Realize that it's, is that happening right now, or are you listening to me right now? You're listening to me right now. So, what you're dealing with is past. You got these past thoughts that are now all of a sudden really disturbing your peace now. Telling yourself a story that maybe happened 15 minutes ago. But, the more that you're kind of moving, if whatever is going on, if you're angry right now, not to even say that anger is bad for you to be right now. That could lead you to the next kind of stepping stone to get you into feeling good. So don't judge yourself for where you're at. It's like own it. Own what you're feeling, and make the conscious choice. Do I want to continue in this? Is this helpful? Is this making my vibe where I want it to be? Is this what I want to be doing with my eternal now? How long do I want to spend in this state? Stay there as long as you want, really. But you don't have to. And if you go from anger to maybe, not so angry, then, into, you can move up this progression, and so one of the quickest ways to do that is, like, instead of trying to fix why you're angry, just be still and allow your natural state of goodness to start to emerge, because you're like a cork or a balloon. As soon as you stop having this resistance, just look at that as you're just experiencing resistance. We only got one problem. We got resistance, and we need to extend love. We need to heal from that resistance, and God is our source for healing, which is within us. So, you feel that goodness, you start feeling that positive energy. Recognize that thought now is aligning you to your actual oneness, your inner being. That's, what does God think about that thought? If it feels good, you're in alignment with what God already thinks. That's, using that inner navigation system. It's like, oh, well, I had a thought and then I felt a constricted, fearful reaction. Well, then you start to realize, well, that doesn't align to my inner being, which is love. And so you can use that, instead of looking at that and start judging it and battling, is like, oh, well, I just got, this has to do with reinterpreting, or revision, maybe Neville Goddard would say, but like with the body, feeling a sensation and, changing the meaning to, oh, I'm being healed right now. Actively, I can feel it. It's like there's active attention on that area. It's building back up. It's getting stronger. It's feeling better. It's like, oh, I had a resistant thought because I feel like I'm not worthy, which then says, oh, on the inside that felt like that's not true because it made me feel shrunken, scared, and constricted. What is the inner man? Immediately that you're the opposite. And when you start thinking, well, I am worthy, and then you start feeling that little taste of, oh, that felt good to think that. It's like, well, it feels good because now you're starting to think thoughts that are in alignment with your inner being, your connected divine nature. And so, I just wanted to share that with you guys, just so you can continue to feel better and better, and really start focusing on your mindset on allowing and to allow the healing, which it naturally comes as you're being still. You get these resistant thoughts. It's why you can't feel great right now, and just give them to God and just ask for healing on them things. Ask what to do. You have that inner guidance system. Ask the Holy Spirit within you. You can listen to people out here in the illusion, but I'm as trying to be as truthful as possible. I'm still speaking through a perspective. And so but the truest guide you have is within you, and it knows all things. So with that being said, I appreciate you guys liking, sharing, subscribing. Appreciate your attention this long. Hopefully I've been a good steward of it, and appreciate your support in the spiritual and in the physical. And with that being said, I like to wrap these things up with a quote unquote random Bible verse. Let me turn. Nothing's random. God's 100% in control of literally everything and speaks to us in the moment. I just want to give God a chance to speak to you, who's ever listening now. Let's see what God's got to say. 1 John 5:18. We know that whosoever is born of God sinneth not, but he that is begotten of God keepeth himself, and that wicked one toucheth him not. There you go. And with that being said, I think I'm about. So, thanks everybody for listening, and have a good rest of your now, and God bless.